Hey everyone, this is Frank, producer of the SNL Nerds, among other awesome shows on the Non-Productive Network. About halfway through today's episode, you're going to hear the audio drops down quite a bit for Darren and their guest, Kevin Israel. That's because of a ghost. Yeah, every time you hear an audio problem like that, it's because of a ghost. Right? So, just deal with it. And maybe even head over to patreon.com/nonpro. Tip the show creators a little bit and see if we could afford to pay producers to fix the audio problem. No, wait, I mean exercise the ghost problems in our virtual studio so that issues like this don't happen in the future. But yeah, it's going to be a good episode overall anyways. Again, about halfway through, Ghost. Thank you.
Dave from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, the show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out about Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
Hey, Darren, how you doing?
How's it going, good sir? Happy Thanksgiving, good sir.
Happy, yeah. We have had a Thanksgiving since we have last talked on this podcast. And since we've last talked in life. Darren and I, we do not speak to each other in real life.
Yeah, people think we're very close, like a Bert and Ernie, Hall & Oates situation. It is not that. This is all business.
No.
We come here, we do the podcast, and then we leave we're out of each other's lives immediately as soon as the mics turn off.
Yeah, we curse each other's names, we spit on the ground. It's there's a lot of tension in the air, is what I'm saying.
Yes, very Johnny Marr and Morrissey, some might say.
Sure. But we're able to alleviate a little of that tension this week because we have a special guest, and it is a returning guest. This might be the fastest we've had a guest return to this program.
Yeah, this is fantastic. You know him, you love him. He was here when we talked about the first Ghostbusters film. Ladies and gentlemen, returning guest, Mr. Kevin Israel.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
You are like our Ghostbusters go-to guy now. So, I mean, we wanted to cover Ghostbusters Afterlife. It was opening on a week when we still had a new episode of SNL, so we couldn't cover it immediately. But we said, next break week, let's just go ahead and dive in and do Ghostbusters Afterlife. And who better to have back than Mr. Kevin Israel?
I've always wanted to be a go-to for something, so I'll take it.
Yes.
This is it, sir. Your time to shine.
Yes. And Kevin's movie podcast, by the way, is called Gutting the Sacred Cow, where he and another Kevin and their guests, they go through movies and they argue whether a movie is overrated or not. Hence the title, Gutting the Sacred Cow. Was that a decent description, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But just to be clear, because for some reason, people blame us for the guttings. Our guests pick the movies, and they argue why certain movies that they feel are overrated. It's not us. So people will always say to us, I can't believe you don't like Rocky. No, Kevin Goatee and I might love Rocky. It's our guest who's coming on to make their case for why they think Rocky is overrated. And then we argue back, or, we argue for or against, depending on our own opinion. So it's up to our guests to pick the movie. But yes, other than that, you're spot on.
All right.
Interesting.
All right.
Okay.
So, yeah,
actually, Kevin,
I'm sure that will be very valuable for anyone who listens to the Gutting the Sacred Cow and then comes onto this podcast to hear how that podcast works.
Sounds good. I love it. All right. So, Kevin, I have a quick question about Gutting the Sacred Cow. So you say that, your guests pick the movie, and depending on what movie it is, you and Kevin either argue, for or against it. Has there ever been a time where a movie's come up where you're sort of kind of either not indifferent to it, but maybe on the fence, like you could go either way? It's like, well, this movie's all right, but I can see it's maybe not the best.
Oh yeah, totally. There's been tons of movies that we've watched, and we're 107 episodes in, something like that. And there's been a lot of movies that, first of all, that we watched that I didn't really want to watch, and I had specifically hadn't seen. The first one that comes to mind, and I know every sci-fi geek is gonna just throw me on a rail and tar and feather me, but 2001: Space Odyssey was a movie I was never really had any interest in seeing, and I watched it, and I didn't particularly like it. And I definitely didn't like it as much as people give it credit for. But so that was one that I watched and just wasn't interested in watching again. What were some others? Saw. I liked Saw when I saw it. No pun intended. But I never wanted. I never really had a desire to watch it again, and so we did that. So there are enough. But again, our guest picked the movie. So we suck it up, watch the movie, and then, discuss our points. And we found, and unfortunately the movie, the podcast is really ruining movies for me a little bit, because I just start to pull apart every movie. So, I hate when, somebody picked Batman 2, for example, Batman Returns, that is. Yeah. And I remember loving Batman Returns, and on rewatch, it didn't hold up.
Good. It is not a good movie.
No, but I remember, and I remember it being great. I remember I loved Keaton's Batman. I thought that movie was great, and on rewatch, I was like, wow, this isn't good. And so I would have rather lived with the myth in my head than the reality that it wasn't a good movie.
Yeah.
Wow. It's been a while since I've seen it.
That can do a number on you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of.
Segue.
Nostalgia is a big part of the movie that we are covering this week. If you've read the title of this podcast episode, or if you've read the description, you know that we're going to do Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is the 2021 sequel to the 1984 classic Ghostbusters. And it more or less leapfrogs over Ghostbusters 2. I don't think they really referenced Ghostbusters too much, if at all.
Not really. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't hear any Vigo references in this one. The Vigo was just like just not in it. But yeah, this movie directed by Jason Reitman, Ivan's son, written by Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan, who's like primarily a director. He directed Monster House and a few other films. So, but I guess he's buddies with Jason Reitman, so he got the writing gig for it. And it just came out a few weeks ago in November. Oh, my voice cracked.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and I think it's doing all right. I believe it was like the #1 movie both weekends in its release. Is that correct?
I believe so far it's doing well money wise. I'll see if I can pull up the numbers.
Well, you don't have to get specific.
But so far,
I was just wondering.
So far it's doing pretty well.
Well, good.
No, but it's so far it's doing pretty well. Not too shabby. This movie
pretty good.
Absolutely. This film was supposed to come out last year. We were going to talk about it last year. We had everything all set up, but then, of course, then the world died, and now got pushed back. It was supposed to come out this summer, then it got pushed back to November. So like I've been waiting. I've been waiting with bated breath for this one for quite some time. First going both you guys, how did you feel about seeing this movie? Were you really anticipated for it? Like when you saw the trailers, did I get you hyped up for it? I mean, what was your mindset before going in to see this film? Kevin, let's start with you.
Kevin, you can
go
ahead and answer.
So I've been preparing for this question, and I came up with an analogy that's going to be terrible.
So we love terrible analogies on this podcast.
Good. So watching this movie was like making plans with a really good friend from high school who you haven't seen in years. And you get together, and at first you're having a lot of fun, and you think, wow, this is great, just like old times. And then towards the end of your meetup, you start to realize, oh, this guy is a conspiracy nutcase. I'm not having the greatest time. I don't think I want to talk to him anymore. And you leave wishing you only had the first half of the experience and not the second half. That's how I felt about this movie.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this movie with like sort of a mixture of anticipation and not dread, but like apprehension is probably a good word, because I mean, we like all of us love the original Ghostbusters. It's a comedy classic, and we have a great deal of affection for that movie and those characters and that world. And unlike the 2016 remake, they were actually revisiting the continuity of the original film. And, you know, that's a tricky thing to do, and make a sequel like this many years after the last one. Because the last Ghostbuster movie was like 1989. So we're going like over 30 years. So that's a long time ago, you know? Darren, what about you?
Well, I was pretty pumped to see this. I saw the trailers, made it look good. I remember, I think you mentioned on Facebook, and I mentioned it too, on the last time we talked about Ghostbusters in the first one, where you said it looks good, but it looks like it's leaning more towards the drama than the comedy.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it's going to be more of a Goonies, Stranger Things type of film than an actual comedy, which I know gave you sort of pause and a little apprehension. But even with that, it did look good. I know a lot of people were kind of wary about this because of the 2016 Ghostbusters and how that turned out and that whole debacle. But then I kept seeing videos about Jason Reitman saying, no, we're taking good care to make sure we stay true to the original, stay true to the vision, stay true to everything. And like I think the fact that Jason Reitman has directed this, the son of Ivan, and you know he was there. He was a kid on the set of the original Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. Like it's sort of like a really, like you kind of trusted him to do what's best for the film, because like it's such a part of his family.
Yeah, and also like Jason Reitman, he's a great filmmaker in his own right. He doesn't make the exact same style of movies as his dad, but I've liked a lot of the Jason Reitman films that I've seen. Like Up in the Air, I think is a brilliant film. So I felt like the franchise was in good hands, and it's also a testament that they got. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say they got all three of the surviving Ghostbusters back.
That they did.
And that's what everyone wanted to see.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So we're gonna because this is like a new movie, we're not gonna go through it scene by scene the way we often have in the past. We're just gonna kind of discuss it just more in a freewheeling way. And we're going to keep it spoiler free at the beginning. And then after a certain point, we're going to get into spoilers. So so overall, how did you like it? Kevin, it sounds like you were lukewarm on the movie at best.
Yeah, you know, and I'm gonna try to be spoiler free about this, but I agree completely with what you said about the trailer. So the trailer, this was a comedy movie. The original was a comedy first and a science fiction / horror movie second, I think. And the trailer, when it was released, you didn't really get too much comedy out of it. You know, there wasn't a lot of ha-ha. There was a lot of visuals, and you knew there were going to be, you know, you sort of felt like there was a nod to the original, but you weren't sure. And then I think the producers, and I don't know if they had it planned, but I think the producers got that feedback. And so then they released the trailer that was just Paul Rudd in the Walmart with the mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And when you saw that, right. And when you saw that, it wasn't really clear if that was just made for a trailer or if that was something. At least I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if that was just a trailer made for like the teaser, or if that was actually something in the movie. Because in a way, I was like, ugh, are they really just going to be going back to all the old gags? And was it just going to be, fan service and nostalgia? And
Yeah, like
then
clean the hair.
the next, right, exactly. And then the next trailer came out, and you saw a little more, and you got the idea. I think they showed a little bit of what looked like Gozer's hand coming out of the well, and they showed the hell dog, the demon dog, and that's where I really started to get concerned, because I was like, oh boy, they're really this is going to be a return of Gozer, and this is going to be fully rehashing the original story. So going into the movie, I was sort of prepared for all of that. But I definitely didn't feel this movie. I felt that this movie was more of almost a reboot to bring in a new audience that the original movie wasn't targeting. The original movie was targeting adults, teenagers to adults, with comedy and with horror. This movie felt like a YA movie targeting tweens who then they can carry through. It was like a business decision. They're like, well, if we want an audience, we need to start them young, and then we'll evolve them as we build this franchise. And that's what I felt this movie did. And it did it without the adult comedy and the adult humor of the original Ghostbusters. So for me, that was one of the first reasons it fell short in a lot of ways, because it wasn't the humor that I was expecting. It wasn't the chemistry. There wasn't a lot of quotable moments in this. There were almost no quotable moments in this movie, where Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, is nothing but quotable.
Yeah.
And so I definitely came away disappointed. But again, it was like I was enjoying it while I was there, and then like towards the end I was like, what, did I really enjoy this, or did I just enjoy reliving this?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
Darren, how about
I can
you?
see that. I think I felt pretty similar to Kevin. Well, I did enjoy a lot of it. I would say most of my gripes with this film come towards the end, which we'll get into later. I can't talk about it without spoiling it. But like
Right.
towards the end, I was like, I don't know if that was the right way to go. But I mean, leading up to that, I will admit, it's not. There are funny parts in it. There are a lot of great acting in it. It isn't the beginning parts. The parts that I really like. It's not at all like any of the Ghostbusters movies. It is a little bit more, serious and toned down. But there are a lot of funny parts in it, like with the kids, cracking jokes and whatnot. It did have more of a Stranger Things Goonies feel, like we thought it would, and I did enjoy it. I was enjoying the beginning part. I didn't expect the McKenna Grace to be like the focal point of the entire movie, which is another thing. But I thought she was a great performer. I thought she was really phenomenal.
I really like her in
And
the movie. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, again, I can't say without spoiling, but we'll get into it later. But I thought she really carried this whole film. Like it was really her film, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So I did like the film. There were like a ton of nods to the original films. I guess I didn't spoil it, but like when the glove box opened and the Twinkie falls out, I was like, all right, okay,
Yeah.
I get it. There was a lot of like big winks towards the early '84 movie. So I was enjoying myself, but yeah, that last part I was like, I don't know, man. But like overall, I thought it was good.
Yeah. I would say I enjoyed the movie. It definitely feels like it takes place in the same world, in the same continuity as the original Ghostbusters, but at the same time, it's not the same type of movie. It's Kevin, like you said, like the original Ghostbusters, it really hits the ground running. It's a pretty rapid fire movie, and it's got a lot of funny moments because it's more of an outright comedy. This one is more of a suspense or spooky type film, and it's a real slow build. But I didn't mind it. I enjoyed that, and I think it's very well done on its own terms. And there were some things that they did that I thought I was like, oh, that's really cool. I could see them doing that type of thing or having that type of thing in one of the original Ghostbusters movies. Like they I don't think it's a big spoiler because you see it in some of the trailers. They get the Ecto One out of storage and they're driving around in it, and they've got like a jump seat, like a shooter seat, and I was like, that's a really cool idea, and that's something I could see the original Ghostbusters doing, even though we don't have that
Yeah.
in either of the original movies. So I thought that was really cool, and yeah, Darren, I really liked. I like the actors in it. I thought the movie mainly focuses on the kids, but I thought none of them were like real annoying kid actor types. Like, because a lot of times when you see a movie that's focusing on kids, they can be real like, aren't I cute and adorable and I'm wise beyond my years, and I didn't really feel that in this movie. They all felt like genuine kids to me, which I thought was nice.
Right. No one was like all overly precocious or anything like that.
Exactly. It was. I mean, it was sort of like the Goonies, but not quite. It wasn't. There wasn't anything like Oh, we just put the statue's penis on upside down, so now it looks like he has an erection. There isn't anything like that.
Right.
They act more like
there was no
kids
truffle.
would.
Right. There was no truffle shuffle.
Exactly. No truffle shuffle. So, yeah, because a lot of times in movies, especially these types of movies, like a little of the kid characters can go a long, long way. And I didn't get sick of any of these kid characters, which I consider like a big triumph for this type of movie.
Fascinating.
I didn't hate.
I did not hate the children nearly as much as I usually do.
The little boy whose name was Podcast, who they should have just called him Comic Relief. He it was just too much. The problem is, for me, this movie felt like a Goosebumps episode. Like it felt it was almost two separate movies. Like the first half or even 2/3 were like, meeting the team. It was like, building up. They were figuring stuff out, and they were, there's a lot that you had to kind of look over. Like they figured out how to use all this stuff very quickly. And
that's true. Yeah.
Shooting proton beams at things would do a lot more than just set it on fire. But beyond that, the first half of the movie, or 2/3 of the movie, was really building up the team, getting everything in place, and I was okay with all of that. I found it a little annoying. I found just the kids, like they were trying to get all these kids to sort of fill in places where the original Ghostbusters were, and I guess it was okay. And then the last third of the movie was just like, oh, but now for you fans, watch all of this. And then it was just like, oh, it was almost like we're watching like a cosplay movie of the original.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt, Kev.
Like Ghostbusters Greatest Hits.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into. I mean, I guess can we get into the spoiler part right now so we can like really
I think so.
chew on this. All right, so spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead. We're getting into spoilers ahead, good people.
Spoilers.
Oh God, that's scary.
Voice of God.
God. All right. Well, so I guess we should also talk about like how the movie starts. So basically, the movie starts. Takes place. The whole movie takes place in Somerville, Oklahoma. It's not even in New York City at all, which is very different.
That's a real switch from the original Ghostbusters, because you think of the original Ghostbusters in particular as one of those quintessential New York City movies, and so it's a real switch in environment.
Right, and so we start off the movie with the death of Egon Spengler, where we see him rushing towards this house. He has like a trap, and he's driving in a pickup truck. He has a trap in the passenger seat next to him, and he's trying to run to the house where he has all these sort of elaborate traps set up to capture this huge ghost coming from the old mine. And we find out that the trap didn't work. And they did this really well because you don't see Egon's face in it at all. You see you see him like in the shadows. You see stuff blocking his face, but
Yeah.
so you don't see his face at all. But you see enough to know that that's an older Egon Spengler,
They're teasing
which I
you,
thought was
but
was
yeah,
cool.
you can kind of tell from like the hair and the shape of his face that it's it's Egon Spengler. You know, obviously it's not Harold Ramis, since Harold Ramis unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. Uh, but whoever the double they use, or whatever they did, you instantly realize that it's Egon, or very close to, after the beginning, you realize it's Egon.
Right.
Yeah, the whole intro for me felt like a really well done cinematic for a video game.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Like
see that.
it was just, like it's existed solely to move the rest of the movie forward, which obviously the intro of a movie does, but it felt like it was just, I don't know. I think I wanted just a little more either backstory. I felt like it could have been a little more artfully done.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But I you got the point, and you got the idea that, he's out there still fighting ghosts, and then he just kind of, he dies. And I felt like that I would have I wanted to see him go down shooting or something. And I understand later in the movie there's a sort of a reason he did it, sort of, but it's just, I don't know. I felt very awkward, and I still can't even put it into words about how the movie started. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously they had a challenge by, with the story that they were trying to tell, especially when one of the main characters is deceased. But
Yeah.
it felt like it was a little clunky in how it handled it.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I did notice there were.
Go ahead.
Oh well, no, I did notice. Well, I was going to say, like, I did notice they did put some pretty obvious nods to the original Ghostbusters, like when Egon was in the chair and then the two hands
Yeah.
burst out of the chair, much like Dana Barrett's chair in the first one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, John. Go. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, and I think I said something like this when we did the original Ghostbusters a few weeks ago. I mean, they have a really such a unique challenge in this movie, because one of the main actors from the original has passed away, but this takes place in a world where the afterlife definitively exists. So how do you address that, and how do you address him not being there in some way, shape, or form? And I think they did about as good of a job with that as you possibly could, and still be tasteful. Um, so I was pretty happy with that aspect. Kevin, I totally get what you're saying about, you kind of wish that Egon had had a grander death, though, and you wanted him to like go down fighting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I like
Okay.
literally just saw the movie. Like I just got out of the movie a little over an hour ago, so it's very fresh in my mind. So I'm still kind of turning it over in my head. You guys just saw it.
I think you're still in
around
the
a week
afterglow
ago,
of
if
the
I remember.
movie.
I think I am a little
Okay.
bit. But I think I'm generally positive on it. It was not what I was expecting. I will definitely say that it was. But I enjoyed that. I was surprised by it. I'm like, these days you see so many movies where you see a trailer that basically just summarizes the movie for you. And the trailers for
True.
this movie didn't give away a whole lot. It gave you a feel for the movie, but I didn't feel like I could summarize the movie without having seen it yet. And I really appreciated that. I liked that it surprised me a few times, and that it zigged where I was expecting it to zag. Like, I mean, I did not like Paul Rudd. We haven't mentioned Paul Rudd yet. His
Oh
character took
right.
some turns that I was not expecting him to take. They did some things with his character.
Yeah.
I was expecting Paul Rudd to be a little more central to the climax, I would say. But he's sort of sidelined in an interesting way.
Yeah, I did notice that too because in this film, I would say Paul Rudd is probably the bigger name or the
Mhm.
biggest name
Oh,
out of the
biggest hands
cast.
down.
Yeah, and like his
Yeah.
character, it's a good part. He's in the movie quite a bit, but he's not super central to the film. I mean, the main character of the film, who gets most of the screen time, who's like the heart of this film, is this kid Phoebe, played by McKenna Grace, like we said earlier. And we find out
Mhm.
that she is the granddaughter of Egon Spengler, who she moves into the house that Egon lived in with her brother and her single mom. Because her mom, we find out the mom is like flat broke, and um, her and Egon had a very strange relationship, and Egon left the house to her in her name. So then they drive out to Oklahoma to live in his house because they have nowhere else to live. And I didn't expect the fact that Egon and her daughter Callie would be estranged. I didn't see that whole subplot about like how the mom resented her father just for like abandoning the family and just hating him. Like she really hates him throughout the whole film. He's just like, yeah, I didn't know him. He was a scientist. I don't know, whatever. Like he really like
Right.
badmouths him in front of his kids, but I didn't expect that to be a whole thing too. But that's always interesting.
Yeah.
I thought
yeah. I mean,
I thought
will-
I thought it was a little weird. Sorry, John.
No, let's go ahead.
I thought it was strange, and they, I mean, they addressed it, but the whole like, people didn't know about what happened in New York situation,
Mhm.
or that people thought maybe it wasn't real, or I feel like even if something like that, I mean, 1984 was obviously a very, very different time than now. You didn't have the internet, you didn't have social media, you didn't have 24-hour news, so things weren't covered quite as closely. But I feel like
Yeah.
if a giant marshmallow man walked through Manhattan and was then blown up, that
Mhm.
would be in that would be in history books. Like that would be part of history. And there was clearly footage of it. People would have, there news stations, there would have been footage. And it was just
Right.
so strange to me that like they didn't know who they were, or the whole it just I feel it just goes back to I feel like they handled it very badly. They
Mhm.
almost in my mind and this really just goes to the heart of the movie, but it was a strange decision that they said, all right, well, Harold Ramis is dead, so let's make the movie all about Egon. That was a strange
Yeah.
way to
I-
go for me,
They obviously would
because
not have
it
made
creates
this
problems.
movie in this way if Harold Ramis had not passed away.
Right. But it's almost like they made their life harder in doing this. There was ways
Mhm.
they could have made, like, these kids could have been Ray's grandkids, and Ray could have been so distraught over Egon's death that he stopped being a Ghostbuster or whatever, and blah 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 blah. But making the whole thing central around Egon and how much this woman hated Egon, and then how the movie evolves, it felt like they were working so hard to honor the memory of Harold Ramis that you almost lost some
Right.
of the rest of the movie in this service to his. It was like a memorial to him that became a movie, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it didn't need to be all that.
I
And
see what
I
you're
would argue
saying.
that if Harold Ramis saw this movie, I don't think he would have been happy with it.
Because like too sentimental, or
Yeah, I think he would have just said, "Why did you make it all about me? Why did this isn't what I created." This movie is about
yeah.
characters and humor and the way, chemistry between characters and actors. Like that's what the movie was about. The movie was based off of, and just to go to the theme of your podcast, these were SNL guys. These were guys who live off of the chemistry in a scene. And that's what this movie was about. Every scene in the original Ghostbusters was a memorable moment in the interaction of these characters. And that there was not one of those moments in this movie for me.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I think Harold Ramis would have looked at this and said, "This is what you guys missed, what we were making there." And I would almost go as far to say, and I'm really backing myself into corner here, that the sequel was a better movie than this movie.
That Ghostbusters 2
Wow.
was a better Ghostbusters movie than this.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we plan to cover Ghostbusters 2 at some point in the near future, like as soon as we can get to it, basically. Um, it's not going to be next week, but we're going to do it as soon as we can, I think. And we can get into that. And I mean, that one's kind of interesting because, like, even 5 years later after the first, and it's all the same major people doing it, and to a large degree, even all the exact same creative people weren't quite able to recapture the magic of that first one. And
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's been a
absolutely.
long time since I've watched Ghostbusters 2, but I remember it's a perfectly fine movie, and and I think it's funny in its own right. It's just unfortunately following one of the all-time comedy classics, so it can't help but disappoint you to some degree. And I mean, this one I kind of liked that it was doing something a little different. I thought McKenna Grace was great. I totally bought her as Egon's grandchild because she looks enough like Harold Ramis, and they made her up enough because she's got the same sort of kinky hair, and they give her the exact same glasses. So you're like, okay, yeah, I can buy that she's part of that same gene pool. So and
Right.
I thought her character was pretty cool. I don't know if like the recurring I'm gonna tell bad jokes thing. I don't know if that really worked, but it was, I appreciate that they were trying to give her a character trait to carry throughout the movie.
It
Yeah,
did
I think.
not work.
See, I don't know. Part of me likes cheesy dad jokes like that. So, like when she goes off and says things like, "Oh, why can't you trust Adams? Because they literally make up everything." Part of me was like, "Hee
Hmm.
hee hee." Like I chuckle at that. That's just me and my nerdy humor.
Right.
See, you laughing? You like it?
I'm laughing at you admitting that you have nerdy humor,
Ah,
not at the joke.
Yeah.
damn it.
Wow. I mean,
Uh,
163 episodes in, we find out that Darren likes nerdy humor. I did not see that coming
yeah.
on the podcast called SNL Nerds.
Who would have thunk?
I'm full of
It's
surprises.
it's a revelation, truly.
But yeah, I mean, well, let's talk about McKenna Grace because I really thought she was like the shining star of this whole film because she
Yeah.
plays it so well. Where like she does have like funny, tells hilarious nerd jokes like the one I just told, but she's
Hmm.
also like very good at being deadpan, much like Egon was. But she also
Yeah.
has like a lot of heart too. You can see she really kind of cares about like her friends and her family or her lack of friends rather. The fact that she's like super smart
Yeah.
and just like knows how to you know do all the technical stuff I thought was interesting. I don't know, she the way she played it, it was like really like, oh, this was like her breakout role because I looked and see what other things she's done, and like she's done a few things here and there. Like she played the young Tanya Harding in I, Tanya, and the young
Oh,
Carol
cool.
Danvers in Captain Marvel. So she's done stuff here and there, but like I can
Uh huh.
see like this performance being the thing that like really kind of puts her on a bigger platform.
Yeah, I was really impressed with what she did in this movie, and I like that her character. She's like a smart kid, but she doesn't make any apologies for being a smart kid. There's never a like, oh, why can't I be normal? Why am I so apart from all my peers? And she's just like, no, I'm smart. Deal with it. And I like that. I thought that was refreshing. And like I
Did
said, I
she?
totally bought her as Egon's granddaughter. Go ahead.
Did she? And I saw, and because I saw this a couple weeks ago. I'm forgetting details, and I saw another
Yeah.
movie where one of the main characters was on the spectrum. Did she ever say that she was on the spectrum?
I do
I don't
not remember
remember
her
that.
ever saying that. No.
Because you get the feeling that she's, she views the world differently, and
Now,
it
okay.
almost reminded me of the movie. What's that?
Well, there was one moment where I ran off to the men's room, so I was out of the theater for like a couple minutes. So if she said she was on the spectrum while I was peeing, I would have missed that. But I do not remember
Yeah, and it
anything.
yeah, the more I think about it, I don't think she did, but you do get the feeling that she's, she's not socially, really skilled, and she views the world differently. So I think they were kind of pointing in that direction. And in some ways it reminds me, and movies recently have become much more willing to embrace those kind of challenges and people with autism, and the movie,
Mhm.
like the movie The Accountant, who I thought did it really well. And so you start to see that, and rather than be like, oh, why, like John said, like, why can't I be like everybody else? It almost becomes your superpower. It almost becomes like, well,
Mhm.
I'm able to utilize the way my brain works better. So I do like that they handled it like that, and I thought they did a very good job with her character, and they made her very
Yeah.
likable, and somebody that you want to see. I'd love to see her as an adult. I'd love to see how she moves forward. And I would have loved to see that movie without all the other stuff they forced on us, because they didn't think we would trust them to make a Ghostbusters movie that was somewhat independent of the original.
We'll get there.
Mhm.
We'll
Mhm.
get there.
I'm
Because
just going to keep beating that drum.
no, because I think we're on the same page about that, Kevin. So when we get there, I'm right by your side, my friend.
So, okay, well, talking about some of the other kid actors, as long as we're on the subject, how did you guys like Finn Wolfhard of Stranger Things as Phoebe's brother?
Trevor. Yeah, I thought I was really surprised. I thought his character would have more to do. It seemed like I felt like he was kind of underdeveloped a little bit. Like the only thing I got to
Mhm.
know about him was he's good at cars, he can fix cars, and he has a love interest at the Burger Shack. Like
Yeah,
when they stop at that burger joint, and he has a crush on Lucky, whose name I don't think they even say in the movie until like 2/3 of the movie in.
I
Uh,
never caught it. No.
but yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, they said it really quickly. Like like her nickname is Lucky, but she never said it. I don't know. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I thought he was all right, but like yeah, he seemed to be a little underdeveloped, which surprised me because again, aside from Paul Rudd, he kind of does have like the higher what's the word? I guess maybe visibility or like higher status as far as things go because he's been in Stranger Things, which
Hmm.
a lot of people have seen. So I thought they would have given him more to do, but and maybe they did and they just cut it out. But yeah, like I felt like his character was a little underdeveloped.
You are being kind, sir. His, his character was terrible, and it was terrible casting.
Wow.
The brother
Not.
should have been, yeah, no. It was cast purely because of Stranger Things and the popularity of him and his ability to
Uh-huh.
draw in that demographic. The character that would have made sense for who Phoebe's character was would have been a brother who was a jock, and who either you could have gone one of two ways with it, and this is very tropey, but it would have worked. He either could have been the jock who was like, my sister's so weird, I don't get her, or he could have been the jock that protects his sister because he feels he has to because the father's not around, whatever. But it should have been a completely different character. But so you have the one character who's obviously, Phoebe's the nerd, intellectual. She's walking Egon's path, and then you have the brother who looks kind of nerdy, sort of. He's a skinny, awkward kid, and he is good with cars, I guess. So like he sort of has that engineering thing in him, but then he
Hmm.
doesn't get his sister, and it's like, is he the same? Is he the same, or is he different? Like, what purpose does he serve? And in the end, it came out he really didn't serve a purpose. He was just another character to be there. We just need more people in the movie. So here's a guy who you'll recognize from Stranger Things, and you'll probably think he's the same guy from Stranger Things. So that's what we're gonna do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a bit of
Yeah,
it where it felt a little like he was cast because he's like one of the trendy kid actors right now. I didn't mind his character. I don't agree. I think that he needed to be a jock. Kevin, I think you just like seeing jocks in movies because you're a jock. You're a muscular man. You like seeing yourself on
No, and
hmm
screen.
you know what, and I get that, and I do like
I'm
that
just
kind of
teasing.
character, but no, I know, and you're not wrong, but
Yeah.
I do think that dynamic there would have been something there that you could have like kind of got your teeth really into, like a relationship that you could
Yeah.
have understood. This was just an awkward relationship because they didn't. And fine, if he's going to be the guy, fine, make him the guy, make him Mr. Cars guy, Mr. Greaser kind of guy. Make him something that we can say, oh, I know, I get it. I get what you're doing with this person. But instead,
Right.
he just walked this weird middle where it was just like, okay, I get. And you know what? And sometimes you can have that just normal character who doesn't have like anything. Not everybody has a catchphrase. Not everybody's, can be put into a category, and that's okay. And a lot of times that character is who the audience is supposed to see the movie through. Yeah. And he wasn't that either. Like he just, I don't feel that he ever served a purpose. And even when, I don't want to get ahead, but even when you got to the more emotional parts with the family and the family history, it was almost like, how does he feel about this? Like you never really got his. It was just like he was kind of just there.
So you found him kind of bland. It sounds like.
Very.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, like you never really get a good sense of like how he feels about things or who he is. Like he doesn't really have any like sort of defining characteristics or personality. Like I said, he's a gearhead. He's good with cars, and he has a crush on this this chick at the burger place. That's all you really know about him. Like you don't. Yeah, he needed more.
Yeah, and you know what? And being a horny teenager is sometimes enough. Like if he was just the guy who was like just trying to get into, trying to get with a girl, or that was his, he was 15 or whatever he is. Like, yeah, that's your kind of driving motivation at that age. Make him that. Make him not care about anything else except this girl that he's trying to get with. Because that was what he was first introduced as. Like he hated the place, and suddenly he saw the pretty girl and was like, "Oh, I'm going to go talk to her." And then like his whole path was rerouted. So keep going with that. But they didn't do that either. It was like they kept on being like, "Oh, what's a teenager? Teenagers like girls. All right, make them like girls. We need somebody to fix the car. Make him fix the car. He likes car." It was like he was just there to serve certain purposes and not be a character that you cared about.
Right.
I'll agree with that.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned before, it sounded like you really were not fond of the character of Podcast. And I don't even remember if that kid had a real character name. He's just, I think he's just introduces himself as Podcast. He's called Podcast throughout the movie. By the way, his podcast, it really finds its voice around episode 46.
Yeah, he was the comic relief. He was the one who was created to, to make jokes and sort of diffuse the tension of the situation and remind us that this is supposed to be a ha-ha movie. And it was just really, really forced. And it almost felt a little like, it also felt a little awkward because he was Asian, and it almost felt like a little bit of a stereotype, which also felt awkward, especially as a child. Like he's like this super intellectual child. I mean, what was he supposed to be? 11, 12? And, he's Asian and he's super, intellectual and knows all this stuff. And it felt a little uncomfortable to me.
It was kind of like Data from the Goonies.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. But you look at you look at that now and you go, "Oh my God, how did we let that happen?" But you go, "Oh, it was the '80s." Okay, but now and we're still kind of doing that.
I mean, he definitely felt more like a real kid to me than Data. I mean, if I met a kid like the Podcast character, I don't think I would think it unusual or him a racist stereotype. But I see what you're saying, Kevin. That maybe he could have been a little more well-rounded.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, but John, what do you think of Podcast and of Trevor? Those characters.
I mean, I see what you're saying with both of them. I found all the kid actors in this. I didn't get sick of any of the kid actors in this movie, and in so many movies, like you see a kid actor who's just, they're just like a little too quippy, or they're just a little too wise beyond their years, and that can get very old very fast. And I didn't get any of that with any of these kids. So I thought all the kid actors did a good job. Yeah, maybe the writing could have been a little stronger for some of them, but I mean, honestly, I was just so impressed with McKenna Grace. I thought she did a really good job of carrying this movie, because it's really more about her character than any other, I would say.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely more about her than any of the other characters. I would say maybe I would say maybe in second place, like what this movie's about is like her mom, Callie, played by I believe
Mhm.
the actress name is Carrie Coon. Who, like, I don't think she was in much, but like I looked through her IMDb, and the only thing I recognized was she was the voice of Proxima Midnight in the Avengers Endgame and Infinity Wars film, which I thought
Oh,
was
there you go.
interesting.
Okay, that's probably why her name sounded familiar, but she didn't look familiar to me. I always have a better memory for faces than names. So I was like, I don't believe I've seen this actress before. I thought she was good. She's sort of like the harried mom, and she's got like a lot of problems in her life. I mean, as the movie opens, she's like being evicted from her home because she's behind on her rent, and so they basically go out to this dilapidated old mansion in Oklahoma because they don't have any other choice. Uh, and she thinks she's just going to sign the place away and maybe get some sort of cash settlement. But then she finds out from Janine, from Annie Potts, making a nice cameo appearance, that no, Egon, who owned the mansion, was like heavily in debt, and so they have to stay there because they basically don't have a choice.
Right, like everybody in town kind of knows him as the crazy old man who lives by himself. Everybody calls him a dirt farmer. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're staying at the dirt
Yeah,
farmer house," and like, yeah,
yeah,
and it was nice to see Janine too. Like, because I remember like they showed her in the trailers, and people were like, "Oh, is Janine Melnitz is she that woman's mom? Like, what does she have to do with this?" And it turns out she's just like
yeah.
just helping out a friend. She's just like the innkeeper or something like that.
I don't remember
And they
them ever
should have done
saying
that.
who the mother was. I mean, and okay, I assume you guys stayed and you watched both the credit scenes in the movie, because there's a mid
Yeah.
credit scene
Yep,
and then there's an after credit scene.
Yep.
yep,
You saw
seen
both
both.
of those, right? Okay,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay. So and the very end credit scene, they show a deleted scene, or the beginning of a deleted scene from the original Ghostbusters between Egon and Janine. So I guess that deleted scene is now officially in Ghostbusters continuity now, and it's
Mhm.
sort of playing up that romantic attraction or that flirtation that they had in the original movie. But they never come out and say that Janine was like the mother of Egon's children. They don't answer that question at all, like who Egon hooked up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as the mother goes, for me, man, the more
Uh
I
huh.
talk about it, the more I'm just gonna feel like the hater of this movie.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Bring on the
the,
salt.
the mother was also just kind of an empty character. Like
Uh-huh.
what do you know? It was almost like it was like, well, what do you know about single mothers? Well, they hate their fathers and they have bad relationships with men. And they talk badly about the men that they were in relationships with, but they love their kids and they know they do a bad job parenting. And it's like, what do you know people? Do you know like real people? Like that's it. Like she was just an angry lady who we don't she did she have any skills? Did she have anything to offer? Like she was just this lady who was there to be pissed off at Egon and to
Uh-huh.
like make so like to sort of play against her daughter's interest in Egon. And that was it.
Mhm.
Like give her something. Give her, like make her like a Sarah Connor type character where she's become so independent and she's a strong character who's, helping her children. Like I don't know, something, but she just ended up being this like kind of bitter woman who all we really know about her is that she hates her father because he left for some unknown reason. And she's a kind of a screw up because she's bad with money and whatever, and we're not really sure what she does or how she got there or anything about the father, or what it doesn't matter. She's a single mom. That's what you need to know about her. And that's
Mhm.
it.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if
And I was
this
like,
movie passes
fuck.
the Bechdel test. Where you have two women talking and they're
No.
not talking about a man. It may not. It probably
Right.
doesn't actually. If they're not talking about a man, they're probably talking about a ghost, and it's probably a male ghost. So yeah,
Even in death, the men are just the patriarchy is still prevalent.
Right.
you see,
Like
the
I would
patriarchy
have,
will never
and
die, so there'll be no there'll be no ghost of the patriarchy.
right. And I would have, I'm gonna by the end of this end up writing a whole different movie. But I would have liked it better if she was so angry at Egon that she decided she was going to be a better scientist than him, or she was going to prove all his theories wrong or something. And that was her like life's work.
Okay.
Like, but she just ended up being like kind of, again, she was just there to serve this very two-dimensional purpose, and then to, you know, be the love interest of Paul Rudd.
Mm-hmm. Well, why wouldn't you be a love interest of Paul Rudd? Paul Rudd is a lovable man. I mean, to the extent that
I would be a love
man
interest
crushes,
of Paul Rudd.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who doesn't love Paul Rudd? He's a delight.
Easy on the
and
eyes.
I really like Paul Rudd in this movie. I mean, I think what he had to do, it was not exactly the function I was expecting him to have in this movie. I think I said that earlier, but I think he did what he had to do in this movie really, really well. He's a seismologist, and he's like stuck teaching summer school at the beginning of the movie, and you know he's not really taking the teaching gig seriously, because the very first day of summer school he's like, okay, we're going to watch this movie Cujo, and then later on we see them watching Child's Play. and but he strikes up a friendship with Phoebe because he discovers that Phoebe has a real aptitude for science, and she knows about the seismology, and we're having like mysterious earthquakes in this town, and we, over the course of the movie, we gradually discover the weird connection that this town has with the events of the original Ghostbusters.
Right. No, absolutely. And then we also learn. We learned a few things. We learned that I enjoyed how they kind of brought in the idea of Egon as the ghost, like kind of early on in the film, like how, when Phoebe's in her bedroom, she sees, and there's like a chess set next to her bed. She sees one of the pieces is moved, is moved forward, and then she takes the other piece on the other side of the chessboard and makes her move, and then she wakes up and the piece that was moved before moves in a different place, and she's like, oh, I guess I'm playing chess with a ghost. Okay, and
right.
I think that's with Kevin. That kind of touches on the thing about whether she might be on the spectrum or not, because like at one point she actually literally sees the chess piece move like on its own with nobody there. She doesn't freak out. She's just like, oh, I guess this is the ghost of my grandfather. Okay.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That was absolutely ridiculous.
He was a little too instantly accepting.
Yeah, I think even the highest functioning person with autism would still have been shocked or scared or dismayed. And we talk about this a lot on Gutting the Sacred Cow. I can't stand when people in movies don't act the way real people would in stressful situations. Like, she didn't go tell anybody about this. She didn't say it to, like, it's just no kid. She was like 12, I guess, 12, 13, whatever she's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And no kid would say, Mom,
11 or 12,
yeah, Mom, there's there's an invisible force moving a chess piece around. Like, you would say something. You would absolutely say something to the mom or to the brother or to somebody. But then she just accepts it all, and she accepted everything that was put in front of her in this movie. She didn't question any of it. She just accepted it blindly.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Like, and the fact that when the ghost sort of guides her towards where Egon hid the trap, like she sits in the same chair that Egon died in, and the chair, she moves towards where Egon hid the trap in the floor, and she just takes it out. She's like, oh, this is interesting. What's this? Yeah, she doesn't get freaked out by it at all. But then again, they do mention that.
Wait, Darren, hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You skipped over the fact that the chair points her to something, and she's like, oh, it must be pointing to this piece of wood on the floor. That's a puzzle that I know how to do. And I did it without multiple efforts. And, oh, here's this thing. Like, what?
What? All right, I'll give you that. That was a little too convenient.
I think the implication there was that the ghost of Egon, or the spirit of Egon, whatever you want to say, was like guiding her through that. And I did like after she discovers Egon's secret workshop, she like finds a fireman pole and like slides down into the workshop. I did find myself wondering, how do you get out of that workshop after you slide down the fireman's pole? Do you climb back up that? Do you shimmy back up? They did not cover that question, and I found myself wondering that when the mother found the same thing later.
that's a
But I
good one.
liked like Egon's spirit is sort of felt. You don't see like an actual ghost Egon at this point in the movie, but like there's a light by her that sort of like shines where she wants to know. And at one point, she's like looking at some of the old Ghostbusters equipment. She says like, "Well, how did you know how to build all this stuff?" And then the light just pans over to all these degrees on the wall. I liked that because that was kind of cool. I thought that was
Yeah.
a neat way to have this to represent the character of Egon without getting into, what do we do because we don't have a Harold Ramis here. So
Did
I
you
thought
notice
that
the
was
jars of spores, molds, and fungi?
I did. I was like, hey, he's still got the spores. He kept the hobbies up because it's important to have hobbies. I mean, he had the paranormal as his profession, but he still had the hobbies, and I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that
So,
was. I mean, but I see what you mean. Yeah, now that you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that was interesting. I mean, like they again with the Easter eggs they put throughout the film, like the fire, the firefighter pole, like was in the first film, spores, mold, and fungus from the first films. Yeah,
yeah.
they
The stacked books. Did you guys catch that?
so which one?
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
were
No
in the living
human would
room. There are
stack.
books.
They never
Stacks
comment
books
on
like
that.
this.
Yeah, there's
No.
a
It drove me
gigantic like
crazy.
6-foot stack of books when they first come to the mansion, and I liked at one point because the kids go on kind of a. It starts out with Finn Wolfhard's character Trevor. He repairs the Ecto one and he takes it out on a joyride, and then he ends up running into Phoebe and Podcast after they have an encounter with a ghost, and that leads into this big chase sequence through the town, and they end up not arrested but taken in by the authorities, because Trevor doesn't have a license and he's actually only 15 and he's failed his driver's test 3 times. We find out, and
Yep.
I was very surprised that the sheriff was played by Bokeem Woodbine. I had no idea he would be in this movie, but I was like, "Hey, surprise, Bokeem Woodbine!" I love him from
He
Fargo
barely was.
and Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I thought that was one of the cleverer gags in the movie where, like he says, "Oh, you've got one phone call. Who are you going to call?" I thought that was a clever way to get that line in. I thought that was cute, and
Yeah.
he places
But
a
yeah,
call. She
but
places a phone call.
yeah, he plays the call to raise a cult because she saw the number on a YouTube video when she was watching the old Ghostbusters ads from the '80s. Because
Yeah.
I believe at this point she took the trap to school one day, and like her and Podcast were looking at it. They didn't know what it was because they'd never heard of
Mhm.
what happened in the '80s. Gary Gruberson, Paul Rudd, that's quite a name. He looks at it, is like, "Oh, cool! Is that a replica? That's from the '80s." And then
Yeah.
that's when he tells them about what happened in the '80s.
Which, by the
Because
way,
Paul
Raise a
Rudd is
Cult
an
was pretty
immortal.
much the only nod to the sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause,
Oh,
I mean,
The
oh,
book,
right.
the bookstore was the only thing that happened in
that's
the
true.
sequel that they.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
incorporated.
Ray is still running the same bookstore. And yeah, I didn't mind so much that the Ghostbusters had almost passed into the realm of legend because they were at the beginning of Ghostbusters 2, they're discredited and everybody thinks that the events at the end of the first film were some kind of hoax and that it was all a big put on. So I didn't find it a big stretch that they that everybody more or less forgotten about them. I mean, because you have to have that sort of process of discovery, I think. So I
Here's
I
the
didn't
thing
mind
about that, though, John.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 100% right, and if they were just going to go, oh, all right, well, in the sequel they were kind of made out to be charlatans and everybody thought it was a lie and whatever. Fine. Then you have to acknowledge everything else that happened in the sequel. That, oh, by the way, what about we walked the Statue of Liberty through Manhattan?
True.
That all happened too. So
Yeah,
now we've done
yeah.
2 ridiculous things in Manhattan. Like you can't have one without the other. And
Yeah.
it's I haven't, and I don't know why I didn't research it yet, but I'm definitely going to look up why the producers chose to kind of disacknowledge everything that happened in the sequel. I'm sure that, there's a reason just because it wasn't a great movie. But
Yeah.
it's just very odd to me. It's very odd. And the minute they went to the store, I was like, oh, so they remembered being in the store, and that, I don't know. There was a lot of kind of historical rewriting that didn't all jibe with one another.
Right. I mean, Ray, he's talking to this girl who's a stranger on the phone. He finds out that she's Egon's granddaughter, and Ray and Egon have had a falling out. He's like, Egon Spengler is dead to me. May he rot in hell, or something like that. And then he finds out a minute or two later that he actually did pass away like the week before. And then Ray updates us on the other Ghostbusters. He's like, Venkman went back into academia, and he's a professor emeritus at some university or another. And then I think he says, Winston went into business, and he's kind of vague about it. And
made a lot of
like
money.
You said, Ray's still running the occult shop, which seems like a good fit for Ray, because we know that Dan Aykroyd's really into the occult. So
like when he updates everybody about what happened to the last remaining Ghostbusters, it kind of does all make sense. Like, Pete going back to academia, that would seem about right. And then Winston sort of going into finance and, starting a business and making tons of money. I was like none of it seemed too unbelievable to me.
Whoa, hold on a minute. It's Frank again, interrupting to remind everyone that the audio is about to get a little wonky. We have the ability to fix the audio here, but we did not have the ability to do it in a timely manner. I know everybody was really excited about hearing our thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife, and to get it up, again, in a timely manner, we had to make do with the rescue audio that we're about to hear. If you're interested in hearing all this in its as close to original quality as possible, consider going to patreon.com/nonpro and, making a donation. If we get a big uptick in SNL Nerd supporters, we may actually put the effort into sampling each bit of audio and rescuing Darren and Kevin's voices from the abyss. Otherwise, it's a free episode. Enjoy it. And we'll see you in the comments. Oh God, please don't leave bad comments. We really, I'm emotionally drained. All right, back to the show.
Can I jump back to Paul Rudd's character real quick?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So Paul Rudd's character starts off as this kind of mash of Venkman and Stantz, where he's got the wide-eyed excitement of Ray when he discovers all the ghost-busting stuff. But he's also kind of got the snarky slacker attitude with the kids. He's putting on videos for them, and he just doesn't care because he's above it. And I was cool with that. I was like, all right, this is an interesting character. He's sort of filling two slots, but he's Paul Rudd, the sexiest man alive. How can you argue with that?
2021 sexiest man alive. Yes, Paul Rudd. We did not mention that.
Right, exactly. You don't just get handed awards like that without having earned them.
Oh, but, no. I mean, it was a hard-fought campaign. Yeah.
But then he morphs into Louis Tully.
And that he transforms into a dog?
Yeah, and I mean, that he's sort of, I don't know, his character sort of went from being this, cool, sort of excited slacker. He's got a bit of the nerd thing going on, but he's a cool nerd and whatever. And then he gets a little bit awkward and a little bit weird, and then he just becomes the fodder for Gozer and that whole final part of the movie that I'm sure we'll get to.
He becomes the new Keymaster, yes.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, so that's all that character was going to do. You built him up, and then we did nothing with him.
See, that was a thing that really surprised me in the movie, was what I was saying before, where the movie zigged where I was expecting it to zag. I was not expecting Paul Rudd to essentially be taken off stage for the extended climax of the movie because he was transformed into a dog like Louis Tully was. I thought it was interesting. I thought it worked okay, but it was a funky choice just because Paul Rudd's a big enough name that you don't expect him to be taken off stage during the climax of the movie,
Yeah. I mean, I thought they show him sort of talking to the mom, and there's like they had good chemistry, and trying to hook up with the mom, and that added some really funny scenes there. But yeah, like ultimately it wasn't. It didn't really. I mean, I don't want to say it didn't go anywhere, but it was definitely. It felt like it needed more. It seemed like they gave everything, like as far as like character development and dialogue to Phoebe, and maybe a little to podcast, and some to the mom, but like everybody else just kind of got the scraps.
Absolutely.
So and then after that phone call with Ray, that's for the longest time after that, you're just kind of waiting for the other Ghostbusters to show up, and we know from like because the guys have done talk show appearances. They were on like both Fallon and Seth Meyers' late night shows a couple weeks ago when the movie was about to open, and we know that they suit up and they're like in the proton packs because they're talking about like, oh, these are a lot heavier than they were 30 years ago. So for like a good half of the movie, you're just like, well, when are they going to show up? When are they going to show up? When are they going to show up? And they do finally show up at the climax, and we get to see the guys. What did you think about that when we finally get the OG Ghostbusters back?
Kevin has
I think that said so much.
Did you guys see The Irishman?
No.
No, I know about it.
With De Niro de-aged.
Yeah. So there's a scene with De Niro de-aged where he, puts a beat down on some guy, and because De Niro is 80 or whatever he is,
right,
they had to pull back, and it's far away, and it's like the slowest smackdown ever played.
Right,
and it was painful to watch, and that's how I felt watching the Return of the Ghostbusters. Venkman seemed somewhat present for the scene. Bill Murray felt like he was dragged out of a fucking casket, and was just told this Ghostbusters movie, like he needs a new roof or something, and he had to do this movie. That was the most mailed-in, reluctant performance I've ever. Like, you saw in his eyes the whole time was like, I was one of the biggest comedic actors in the world, and here I am in this YA disaster, recreating a character that these kids don't even understand. And I'm going in the house to make some hot chocolate. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we got out of.
I thought it was kind of funny because, for the longest time, Bill Murray, I think it's no secret that Bill Murray was the most reluctant to return for a possible Ghostbusters 3. And for years and years, he was like, I'll do it if you kill me off as Venkman, and I'll come back as a ghost. And in a weird way, Harold Ramis stole his thunder by passing away first. So obviously we can't do that with Bill Murray anymore. We can't kill off two of the original Ghostbusters. And if we're going to kill off any of them, it has to be Egon, since the real life actor has unfortunately passed. So yeah, that's what do you do with Bill Murray? I did like him he got a few zingers in there. I liked how, when Zool shows up, he's like, oh, we could have had something, baby, but no, it was nice to see that Venkman is still a sarcastic bastard. And it is nice just to see those guys suited up again and playing their original characters. And I'll admit, I did get like a little teary seeing that. It got me in the feels, as the kids say. Darren, what was your reaction?
I guess I'm in between both of you guys, because, so, like, basically, and this is where I sort of felt like, this is what I was alluding to with the whole third act. I was like, I don't know about this, just because, alright, so basically, throughout the movie, we find out that the whole town was built by Ivo Shandor, who was, of course, mentioned in the first Ghostbusters. and like a lot of the ghosts were hidden in the mining town,
Right.
or in the Ybor Shandor
The
mine.
steel that went into building Dana's building from the first Ghostbusters, it came from this town.
Right, exactly. So then the ghosts get loose, and they possess Gary and Callie, the mom and Paul Rudd's characters, and of course then we get a recreation of I Am Gatekeeper, I'm the Keymaster.
Mm-hmm.
We see the mom dressed in like a sparkly dress, much like Dana did in the first Ghostbusters. A lot of nods to the first Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it was like the same dress, but in gold. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know if you guys caught the two cameos that were in this film, where we had J.K. Simmons as Ivo Shandor.
Yeah.
I did recognize him,
The
yes.
shortest cameo of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
And Gozer. And Gozer, played by Olivia Wilde.
I missed Olivia Wilde.
Was she? That was Olivia Wilde?
Yes. Gozer, that was Olivia Wilde.
Okay, because I was thinking when Gozer showed up, I was like, she looks really familiar. There's something very distinctive about the shape of her face, but because of the makeup, I couldn't quite place it. But now that you say that it was Olivia Wilde, and I missed her name in the credits as well, I was like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. And now I know who Gozer was. Okay, cool.
I thought she was completely CGI'd, actually. That's why I didn't even look up the actress. Because the way it looked like a completely CGI'd character.
No, I think they used a lot of practical effects for this.
Yeah.
I think, like, the only things that were CGI were, like, the ghosts.
I will say, like, about the special effects, I love that they still, for the most part, looked like 80s special effects. And obviously, they had to be done with, like, CGI when, like, they're firing the proton packs. But I like that the rays or the energy flowing from it still looked more or less like it did in the 80s. I like that they preserved the same look to it.
Yeah, that's another thing about this film. It had a very 80s film feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt like I can't explain how, but like a lot of the beats and a lot of the jokes and a lot of the maybe humor and the kind of very 80s feel to it. But anyway, to your question, so when it looks like the family on the farm is about to be attacked, and Phoebe's trying her best to fend them off, and she finds out that the entire farm and the farm is actually one big giant trap to capture the ghost that's in the mining company, because Egon sort of built this whole farm just to trap the ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Why he left the family in the first place, because years ago he saw and knew that this was going to happen, so that's why he left the Ghostbusters. That's why Ray was mad at him. He couldn't tell anybody, and he set up this whole thing just to trap the ghosts, keep them contained, so the world wouldn't end. So anyway, after the ghosts are about to escape, and everybody's trying to fend them off, and then the Ghostbusters show up, and I think this is the point where I was like the fanboy in me likes to see this. This is a good, cool, little nostalgic thing to see, but you already spent most of the movie making me care about this family, Phoebe and Trevor and the mom, and I do care about them, but now it seems like the focus has shifted totally away from them and onto the Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it was like a tone shift in a way. Like the focus sort of, like the movie sort of became about them in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe that was done just to appease the fanboys, and like they don't want to make the fans angry, like the 2016 movie did.
I mean, God, can you imagine like the fanboy wrath we would have seen if like the kids had saved the day all by themselves and totally shown up the original Ghostbusters? And I mean, I think it does make sense from a story standpoint that the original Ghostbusters, who know what they're doing more, even as quickly as the kids picked up on how to use all the equipment. But yeah, it's interesting because the movie is basically told from the point of view of the kids or of Phoebe's family. And like after that phone call with Ray, we don't see the original Ghostbusters until like the very, very end, when they come in and they help save the day. You kind of want to see that other movie with the original Ghostbusters, where the gathering everyone together, and you want to see a little of it from their point of view. Yes. I think.
Yes, that could have been this. Maybe this could have been two movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the fact that they just like we're seeing a real movie. We're going to see a real movie that people spent real money on to make, and you have these three guys just kind of Deus Ex Machina themselves in, and at the exact time that they need to be there, like they,
Right.
perfect timing, guys. And with their kind of corny one. Look, and I will admit it. The whole audience started to applaud. I started to applaud. I got the chills and a little misty seeing them and everything. I got to see the movie opening weekend in the same movie theater that I saw the original in.
Oh wow!
So
yeah,
I was there for the whole experience, and I was with it. But that moment when they walked in, and then they, from their moment of fighting Gozer in the temple or whatever, and they steal the mother out of the one demon dog. From that moment, literally to the end of the movie, the whole movie just fell apart for me. In retrospect, while taking the ride as a huge fan of the original movie, I was on board. I was going there, but there's no reason for me to go watch this movie again because there's nothing I need to see again. I saw it all, and there's nothing for me to relive in this movie because I honestly don't want to see the three of them all old and sort of half acting their way through these scenes, delivering ridiculous dialogue to a climactic moment in the movie that's kind of just barely put together with an antagonist that was defeated before. Like, why do we care about her anymore? You beat her already, so now we're supposed to care about her again. The last third of this movie was this movie, and I said it I think on our podcast, was Ghostbusters fan service.
Sure.
That's what in the end. That's what the last third of this movie was, just friggin' fan service, and it was just like, it was too much. It was just like too much cotton candy at the fair. Like, it starts off as a great idea, and then by the time you're done eating it all, you went, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I kind of see that. I mean, like, my one gripe, I guess, about that is, like you said, they did beat Gozer the first time. I kind of expected Gozer to come back maybe stronger and bigger and more of a threat this time, but she, or I shouldn't say she, because, Gozer is whatever she wants to be. But, like, Gozer just kind of came back, like, in the normal way Gozer came back before. Like, it wasn't as threatening. It was kind of...
What happened to that? And then they gave you this awesome, like, Igor Shandor. I thought Ivan Shandor, whatever it is.
Ivan?
Whatever it is. Shandor. I was like, oh, cool. Like, he's going to be the guy now. Like, maybe he'll kill Gozer and, take the power or something, and he's going to be the big bad guy, and it's going to be something cool. And the minute I saw it was J.K. Simmons, I was like, holy shit, like, this is going to be legit. Like, this is really... And then they killed him, and I was like, what just happened? What? And then it was just Gozer again. Without the best part of Gozer becoming a giant marshmallow. Like, it blew my mind. And for me, the most telling thing about this movie, I think, is that the funniest scene in the movie was the scene that was the second release trailer that I said earlier that I wasn't sure if it was in the movie, was Paul Rudd with the mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That was the best scene. That was the funniest scene. The funniest scene in the movie.
I don't know if that was the funniest for me, because like the little Marshmallow Man, it seemed a little too Son of Flubber to me. I think if I'm thinking back on the gags, I did like the callback to the original Ghostbusters where Gozer says, like, well, are you a god? And then, like, we just see like close on Dan Aykroyd, and he's just like turning it over in his head, and he's like, oh wait, I've been here before. And I think, Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson are just like, what, seriously, we're doing this again? You say yes, you're a god. How do you not have this down? I liked that. I thought that was a cute callback. But again, that's like a thing that's treading on our nostalgia.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It was a fun callback, but So, assuming this is Gozer, Gozer doesn't remember the one time it was defeated by 3 mortal humans, and it sees them again, and it doesn't recall any of this. It would have been better if it said, well, I know you're not gods.
Uh-huh.
And then they looked at Ray, and he was just, like, kind of shrugged or something. But having him go through that whole thing and then say, yeah, like, it was like, they're literally falling into all of the traps that we've the ghost traps that we've set for them. Like, all this stuff, like, it was just T-ball. It was just lay up and shoot, and it was just, I don't know, it was just too easy for me. The whole last third of the movie was just, it just all worked out. The lines went it was just too much for me. I was really disappointed by the last third of this movie.
So it sounds like you really liked it.
All right, well, let's talk about this part, because this part of the movie where I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. So we see Phoebe using the proton pack, trying to fend off Gozer. Then we notice there's like a ghostly hand helping guide Phoebe with the proton pack. The camera pulls back. We see it's the ghost of Egon Spengler, and we see like a CGI, aged up version of Egon. Guys, Kevin, I'll leave it up to you. I want to hear your theory.
Yeah, go for it, Kevin.
What did you think when you saw Egon?
I love how every comment you have is just precedented by an ugh.
Because you know what? Again, and I'm going to go back to the cotton candy analogy, ridiculous analogy. Like, they gave us like, if they just showed him for a second holding it and everybody saw him and then he disappeared, fine. I would have been okay with it.
Right.
It wouldn't have felt as uber creepy as it did.
But he hung around for a while.
And it was just like, holy shit, bro, get out of here. What are you doing? This is a dead guy. This is a legitimate dead human being.
Yeah.
Who we're all now, as the audience, forced to interact with in this creepy nostalgia moment, also with the family, his movie family, who none of them seem to react again the way people would. Like the brother, who has, almost zero personality and character, was just kind of like, hi, and then the granddaughter was, hug them, and then the mother sees, and the mother, it was just like, oh my god, they're doing all this. Like, there's no, like, every string has to be cut. Like, we're taking care of every loose end was cut, and we did it all. Don't you feel better about it now? And it was like, not really, because you recreated a dead guy to, like, serve the purpose of this story that you only kind of half-assed together in the first place.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, because like when I first saw that, I was like, I don't know how this feels. I don't know how to feel about this, because I had a feeling they might do something like that, but again, like in the beginning of this movie where they just showed his ghost being there by like moving things, I was like, okay, I like that, but I don't want to see him, because I was afraid it would come off as maybe a little too exploitive or something like that. And I'll compare it to this. Like another time this happened with, they brought back somebody from the dead when they put in Carrie Fisher back into those Star Wars movies, and after she died, it felt a little like, oh, this feels kind of weird and wrong.
At the end of Rogue One, yeah.
So when I saw him, yeah, exactly. Like this was after she passed away, but they CGI'd her in because they had like some leftover footage or whatever. And I was like,
that was not leftover footage. That was pure CGI. that was deep fake Carrie Fisher.
Got it. All right. So yeah, so like when they deep faked in Egon, I was like, this feels, I don't know, like I feel like I should just let the man rest. But like, it was weird. It rides that line of them paying homage and tribute to him, but at the same time feeling kind of, I don't know, weird. Like it showed, like after they defeated Gozer and had all the rest of the Ghostbusters talk to Egon and be like, I miss you, man. I'm sorry we didn't bury the hatchet. And yeah, and it's like what you said too, Kevin, like where the mom hugs him and gets closure and then he kind of dissipates into the air, into the night sky, and then it says, "For Harold." And like, part of me was like, I don't know. Like, I hope, like, it felt like they were kind of trying to maybe manipulate my feelings or something. Like, I don't. I mean, at the same time, I do understand. Like, you know, it was Jason Reitman that did it. And he wouldn't have put it in there if he felt it was exploitive, and he felt like it was a beautiful tribute. And of course, he had to run it by the Ramis family. He had to run it by his daughter before he aired it. So, like, that's the only reason I'm kind of okay with it, because like the family had to sign off on that. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. It felt a little weird to me.
Darren, they did play with your emotions. They covered a piece of dog shit in icing and jammed it down your throat and said, "Isn't this good?" And you were like, "Yeah, it is." And then halfway through, you're like, "I'm eating dog shit." Yeah.
What a metaphor! Wow. Wow. I definitely did not have the visceral reaction that you did, Kevin. I thought, like, first off, I will say that effects-wise, it was brilliantly done. It looked I thought the ghost Egon looked utterly convincing with like the de-aging, and I thought it looked eerily like the real Harold Ramis, and I desperately want to watch a behind-the-scenes featurette of how they did that. Did they take like old footage of Harold Ramis from other movies and age him up somehow? Did they have like a stand-in? Did they do a combination of techniques? I really want to know all that. I want to see how they did that step by step, because it was fascinating and so much better than what they did with Carrie Fisher in Rogue One, where obviously the tech was not there yet. Here, I thought the tech was there. I also feel like it was a really good choice to not have him speak. If they had Egon speaking, I think that would have killed it completely. Because then, you know, you're either reusing bits of dialogue from the old Ghostbusters movies or other Harold Ramis movies, or whatever, or you have some sound-alike who doesn't sound quite right. You know, it's like that Family Guy gag of, you know, well, Jim Henson's gone, so now we have wrong-sounding Muppets. It would have been like a wrong-sounding Muppet if they'd had some sound-alike trying to speak as Egon. So I'm glad they didn't even attempt that. And I like that they just let the expressions and the effects carry it. And so I thought that worked. It's, you know, when you have the original to the Ghost of Egon, it's hard to look. You can't look at that in just like a purely in-story context. You've got to look at that as this meta moment of the other Ghostbusters remembering their friend. And so it can't help but take you out of the movie a little bit, you know?
It's a really interesting point you make as far as the not talking, and there was after they defeated Gozer, and he's, I think, looking at his granddaughter. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna say something, and then I'm gonna get really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and he didn't. But I wonder if they had foregone the whole CGI reincarnation and went with, you know, just the continued like the ghostly presence, and then at the very end, if they had just had him say like, you know, thank you, or, you know, I'll always be with you, or something,
or just wave, just like one single shot
of.
That
was it.
Yeah,
that was all you got, and yeah, and then like had, you know, Vankman or somebody go, you know, like I knew he was here, or like I knew he wouldn't miss this, or something like that, and then just leave it at that, like this creepy where everybody gets it, and you know, and then the whole audience goes, wow, that was his voice, and that's it, as opposed to like throwing this friggin' and you're right, John, you're 100% right. It looked amazing.
Yeah.
It almost looked too good. Was part of my problem. Like, it almost was like, oh my god, this guy. And again, I go back to, this guy's dead.
Yeah.
Like, is this? And you know, they did, and it's the joke with the what was it, the CGI Tupac or whoever it was.
Oh yeah, the hologram. Yeah.
The hologram. Yeah. And it's you know, Is that what is that what memorials are? Is that how we're like our tribute to the dead, or is that what we're moving to in the future? Because I don't want that future. Like I don't want that at all. And this was almost like, oh, so now we can, CGI's gotten so good, we can do stuff with dead actors, and I like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, exactly.
To let them rest in peace.
Exactly. So you're saying you don't want to see like a Marilyn Monroe, Bruce Lee blockbuster where they do like a romantic comedy with kung fu.
well, you know what's I mean, honestly, the first thing that came to my mind as I was saying that was Chadwick Boseman. Like,
yeah.
Would they go as far in the next Black Panther to show him at least just for a second as some kind of passing the mantle or something? And I don't want to see that.
It's.
I mean, they haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
Much, but like I don't want to say that might happen, but it just might.
Well, with Chadwick Boseman, because he died much more recently, it seems like it's in worse taste somehow. And I know that's a weird hair to split, but like Ramis passed away in what, like 2014? Was it something like that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's like 7 years ago. That's a decent amount of time. It doesn't seem as ghoulish to recreate Harold Ramis to me as it would.
Playing a ghoul.
Yeah, well, but if they even just did like a quick cameo with Chadwick Boseman in the next Black Panther movie or whatever the next Marvel movie featuring that character would be, that would seem a little tasteless, or at least in questionable taste to me. So yeah, I thought this worked okay.
Black Panther discussion. I just,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's pretty much the film. It kind of ends right there. I mean, I guess that was kind of my main concern about the ending. It's just like it kind of, like I said, it takes the focus away from the family and kind of puts it squarely on the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And then after this scene, then we go on to we cut to like an overhead shot of Manhattan for some reason, and then it cuts to credits.
Yeah.
And then we get a mid-credit scene where we see Pete Venkman and Dana Barrett, and Dana Barrett's doing the that psychic test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pete Venkman did in the first Ghostbusters.
And it was the where they placed it, because they credit all the new cast, and then they say, and special appearances by Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and then right after they put up Sigourney Weaver's name, and everybody in the audience is just going, wait, Sigourney Weaver was in this? Where? I totally missed her. And then they start the scene with her and Bill Murray, which I thought was a really cute scene. And I thought that was... I enjoyed that, because those two still have wonderful chemistry together.
And, so that scene was cute. It really didn't add too much to the film. It was just a nice little aside.
Well, I also thought it was cool... Wait. Before we go on to the next post-credit scene, I'd like to just say, I also liked that it was kind of acknowledged that the time has passed, and what was just a really funny scene in 1984, now you look at it and it's like, well, that's a little creepy. And Dana is actually saying to Venkman, I can't believe you used to do this with your students, and you would shock them. And Venkman just goes, well, honestly, I would just shock the guys. And even Venkman's acknowledging, yeah, that wasn't quite cool of me. So
Time's up, Venkman.
I thought that was a cool way.
It also allowed you to know that, they're still together.
Exactly. And they have, and it plays very nicely. It just plays as like gentle teasing between a couple that's been together for a long time. And honestly, I always thought that Sigourney Weaver had a terrific idea for a Ghostbusters sequel, which is that her son Oscar should now be grown up and be a Ghostbuster in his own right.
Make that movie.
That would have been fun to see, and it would have been. I know that's an idea she's had for the longest time, and it would have been cool even if they just had a throwaway line acknowledging that Oscar was a Ghostbuster of his own. But I guess that would have been a distraction. But Darren, you were saying, there is a second post-credit scene, and I stuck around for all the way through the credits because I was like, I don't know if there's going to be another scene or not. I don't want to miss anything. And yeah, we got another scene in the right after the credits.
Yeah, so the next scene, it's like you said, they showed one of the outtakes from the original Ghostbusters about how Janine wanted to give this coin from the World's Fair to Egon.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to present day. We see Janine still with the coin, and then she's having a talk with Winston at his office, and they're talking about the old days. Winston talks about how he's like a really successful businessman now, and he's got tons of money, but in his heart, he's always just been a Ghostbuster. So like then they cut in between his speech about that, and they cut to him like kind of walking through an old firehouse, the old firehouse,
right?
And it kind of hints to the fact that he might be bankrolling like a new era of Ghostbusters, and then it cuts down to the old containment unit in the basement, and it shows like the blinking red light, and then cuts to black.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. It was neat to see. It's nice to see Annie Potts and Ernie Hudson get another bit in the movie, because I mean Winston obviously far and away the least developed Ghostbuster character, because the poor guy just did not get much to do. So I liked them showing that Winston has made a real success of himself, and that he is basically subsidizing Ray. He's paying the rent on the occult shop, and he's like, well, that's going to turn a profit someday. So I like that. I like that Winston's looking out for his old buddies.
Right. So I mean, it seems like that's good. Like if they do another Ghostbusters, that's going to be the direction they go in. They'll have like a new crop of Ghostbusters, and Winston will be their financer.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be Charlie.
Like Charlie's Angels, Charlie?
Although, it's like, I know there was like a little...
Yeah.
I thought there was a little continuity thing, because like earlier in the movie, when Phoebe called Ray told him, yeah, we lost the firehouse, it's the Starbucks now. But then it shows Winston walking through that very same firehouse. So I was like, what the hell happened? This ain't no Starbucks. What's going on here?
Sloppy writing.
I don't know. I mean, they were very vague on what type of business Winston owned and was running. So, like, is he a bigwig with Starbucks? I was expecting them to have like an established or a shot after the Winston Janine scene where we see like this big high rise with like international Ghostbusters headquarters, and it's like this big franchise operation now. I was kind of half expecting that, but they kept it vague, I guess, to leave open possibilities if they ever want to do a sequel to this. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah, maybe Winston like owns the Starbucks, and maybe the Starbucks just cleared out of there and he just bought the place back. I don't know.
Oh, it's got Starbucks money.
Maybe Winston. Yeah, he could have been an investor in Starbucks.
And so that's the film. Overall, I mean, we'll give our thoughts overall. Overall, I'll say this: Kevin, I know you've made your thoughts very clear about how you feel about this movie, and I agree with some of your stuff, but overall, I don't think the bad is enough for me to dismiss the entire movie as a whole. I think like the good, there was a lot of good stuff in maybe the first half, and maybe the first 2/3 of the film. Towards the end, I will admit, it gets a little wonky. I would say that the third act of it is where it kind of falls apart a little for me. But I enjoyed the first thirds of it so much that I'm kind of willing to overlook it a little bit, but I will admit the ending isn't as strong as it should have been. So those are my words. So like I recommend that I say go see it. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Kev, what do you think?
So yeah, I liked the first 2/3 enough. The new Young Ghostbusters movie that we got to see, that was nothing like the original Ghostbusters, but I was okay with that. I had a lot of problems with just the characters, but listen, in a sequel, and they're going to probably expand those characters, and there's going to be a lot more development and time spent on them, so I'm sure that'll get better. But then the last third, which was just basically digging up the dead and and shoveling the fan service down our throats. I thought it was, in retrospect. At the time, I was like everybody else in the theater, just saying, "Yeah, just shovel it in my face. I'll give more, please."
But now, shit sandwich.
In retrospect, yeah. But now thinking of it just as a whole movie and as storytelling, which is what a movie's supposed to do, it was bad. The last third of the movie just ruined it for me. Destroys the whole movie for me because they just didn't try. They didn't try. Just guys, think about the conflict in the movie as far as so this town was, and I'm sorry to be going back now, but this town existed because Shander was there, and he built a temple that we never really got to find anything about the temple, which seemed interesting. And now there's ghosts and Goder's back, and it just was all so clunky and so poorly done. And there were so many opportunities where it was like, oh, this could be really cool. Oh, they're not going to go with that. Oh, this could be cool. Oh, they're not going to do that either. And instead, every time they just went fan service. Every time it was just like, well, you know what? We could have a really cool story here and a really cool moment, but instead, here's a miniature Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Like, what?
Right.
Like, screw you. Give your audience a little more credit. And it was almost like they were like, you guys can't possibly get past the first Ghostbusters, so we're going to give you all this stuff again. It's like, oh, screw you. Like, give us a good movie. And that's why people hated Ghostbusters 2016. It was a bad movie. It had nothing to do with women or nothing to do with doing Ghostbusters again. It was, you made a bad movie. And this movie, while better than that, still wasn't a great movie. And they had opportunities to make a great movie. Crapped the bed in favor of fan service and weak storytelling. I rest my case.
I think, Darren, I think Kevin is going full Zoidberg on this movie. This is
sounds like to me.
Kevin, can I do a quick Dr. Zoidberg on your behalf of this movie?
Please.
That was bad, and you should feel bad. So that's going full Zoidberg. That's what we do here when something is disappointing. I mean, I'm still like more favorably inclined.
I like it.
Thank you. I'm still more favorably inclined to the movie. I think if you go in expecting a movie exactly like the first Ghostbusters, you are going to inevitably be disappointed. This is not that. It's not as comedic. It's much more of a slow build, but it is, I think, an interesting story that is set in the same world and the same continuity. And yeah, there is some neat fan service stuff, and it is neat to see the original Ghostbusters all suited up again. I do agree with you that like the supernatural plot, it was a little too reminiscent of the original Ghostbusters. Like, oh, we're doing Zool again, we're doing Gozer again. These people are being transformed into dogs again, Keymaster and Gatekeeper again. So it did have a little of that, play the hits kind of quality. But I still enjoyed it for what it was. And maybe I'll feel more harshly toward it in a week or so, the way you guys seem to be. Like you've had a little more time to stew over it. So, but I enjoyed it. I don't feel like I wasted my money seeing it. I didn't walk out disappointed. At most it was just like, oh, that wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I think it's kind of cool when I see a movie and it's not exactly what I was expecting. Because so many movies you see these days, like you watch the trailer.
The dark side, John.
What's that?
Come to the dark side.
Well, check in with me in a week or so, and we'll see how much I hate it then. But I mean, I find it interesting, yes, so many movies these days, like you see the trailer and you feel like you could basically summarize the movie and be 90% right. So I liked that the trailers of this held a fair amount back. I like that they didn't show us any of the old Ghostbusters in the trailers, and they let us just see it within the context of the movie. So, and that last scene with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver was was just charming. I thought those two just really have a neat offbeat chemistry together, and it was nice to see them even in just that one scene.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's it. Like, I think that's where I land on it. It had enough charm for me to recommend it, but I will admit it's not a perfect movie, and there are faults.
Yeah. But I can forgive it a lot. So, and yeah, that's I'm sure that's partly nostalgia talking. If I hadn't had the affection for the original '84 Ghostbusters, I do think it's weird that it was basically like all '84 Ghostbusters and hardly anything from '89 Ghostbusters. Like we didn't even have the guys in like the gray uniforms from Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, the Scolari brothers.
Yeah. I mean, did we have anything from Ghostbusters 2? Like, no mention of the Statue of Liberty or Mood Slime or nothing. It was just like you could essentially say that Ghostbusters 2 never happened in this universe.
What happened to Janosch Poha?
I wouldn't mind seeing Janosch. Peter McNichol, he's still out there. He's still working.
He's like the buzzing of flies to him.
Yeah. I mean, is the joyfulness over for him? I don't think so.
And, yeah, I guess that's our episode, guys. That's where we land on Ghostbusters Afterlife. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us when you can at our Twitter account, at SNL Nerds Show. And, Kev, thank you again so much for doing this. Thank you for your fire and passion burns bright through this whole episode.
You brought the heat.
I'm sorry I couldn't be completely in sync with you two, but I'm glad I was able to get this off my chest.
No, it's cool. I think it was a cool conversation, and I think people can kind of gauge where their opinions lie relative to ours. So, I'm sure a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, Kevin."
Yeah, we'd rather you give your.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd rather you give your honest opinion rather than just kind of parrot what we say.
I will always be honest with you boys.
Oh, we appreciate that, sir.
Well, no, I was just going to ask Kevin if there's anything he wanted to plug or anything to promote or.
Yes, please.
Have at it.
Check out my podcast with fellow comedian Kevin Goatee called Gutting the Sacred Cow, where each week we invite a guest to argue their case for why a beloved or financially successful movie is overrated. It's a fun take on the movie review genre. It causes a lot of tumult and furor online, which we love. So check it out. New episodes every day on your podcast platform of choice, Gutting the Sacred Cow.
Yeah. And, I mean, you obviously know from listening to this that Kevin, he's a passionate guy. He's got a lot of opinions, and he can back up those opinions. He's like, here's what I think. This is why I think this, and ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And if you don't think so, you're wrong. Boom. That sums you up well, right?
Thanks, John. Yeah, no, that's it. That's me. Yep.
See, I nailed you.
It's you in a nutshell.
I got you pegged.
Really broke me down to my end.
I did. But, oh, no, I mean, this was so much fun, and, yeah, we're definitely going to have you back when we get to the Ghostbusters 2. And we can talk about...
I'd love it.
Yeah, what that movie did right, what that movie did wrong, why it's not quite as well regarded as the first one. I think that's fair to say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a gas. And, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Darren Credible. That's DARIN Credible.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Trumbull Comic. That's TRUMBULL, and then the word comic. And again, you can follow our show page at SNL Nerds Show on Twitter. So, yeah, check us out there.
Please do. And as always, donate to our Patreon at Non-Productive.com. We got a Patreon page. Go over there. Give us some money, why don't you? It's the holidays. Give us some cash, you cheap bumps.
It's all about the giving. It's all about the giving. We are people in need.
Yeah.
So...
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits, yes. They are not just a band from the 80s. Yeah, we want the money for nothing and the chicks for free.
Yeah. Afterlife. I don't know.
There you go. That song from Princess Bride. That was Dire Straits, or at least Mark Knopfler's solo. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Anyway. So we're going to be back next week, and we're going to be talking about the new documentary all about Del Close, improv guru Del Close, who trained many of the people from Saturday Night Live. And it's a great documentary called For Mad Men Only. So, and we're going to have a couple of cool guests on that episode.
Yes, we're going to have two friends of the show, Mr. Rich Tackenberg and Dave Buckman, two improv fans, some improv, what do you call it, aficionados, I guess I'll say.
Yes.
Real cool guys, real cool. It's going to be a real cool conversation. You're going to dig it. For Mad Men Only, Story of Del Close, documentaries on Hulu right now.
Yeah, so check that out on Hulu, and come back for some more fun discussion next week. So we will see you then. But until then, nerds out!
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.